Good morning. Welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Gradick, your host. Delighted to have you with us. We are very honored to have in studio a very special guest, along with a regular, if I might go as far as to say, or maybe not regular enough. But we have United States Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins. Good morning, Secretary.
Good morning. So honored to be here.
And also in studio is Congressman Brian Jack.
Thank you for having me.
Of the third district. Before we get started, as everybody knows who listens to Community Voice, knows that I like to do a little bio. So I'm going to run through Brooke Rollins' bio pretty quick. Secretary of Agriculture since 2025. Rollins graduated from Texas A&M University cum laude with a bachelor's degree in agricultural development from the University of Texas School of Law in Austin with a Juris Doctor. She served as Deputy General Counsel and the Policy Director of Rick Perry's re-election campaign in 2002 Texas gubernatorial election. 2018, President Trump appointed Rollins as the co-director of the Office of American Innovation. 2024, President Trump named Rollins as his nominee for Secretary of Agriculture. The Senate voted to confirm Rollins in February of last year. She was raised in Glen Rose, Texas, the dinosaur capital of Texas.
That's exactly right.
And let's see. And by 1989, she had become the Area 8 president of Future Farmers of America and a member of 4-H. She began supporting conservatism after watching the first inauguration of the great Ronald Reagan. Leslie graduated her previous name, maiden name, graduated from Glen Rose High School in 1990 and then became the student body president of the Texas A&M University, the first female to hold the position in its history.
Man, he's good.
She later served as the Speaker Pro Tem of the Student Senate and as the chair of the Texas A&M Judicial Court. Thank you and welcome.
Wow, thank you.
Okay, Congressman, you've honored us by bringing the Secretary in. How did you pull that off?
Well, I am grateful to have my good friend Secretary Rollins in our congressional district today. We worked together for all 4 years of President Trump's first term in the White House. She served, as you noted, as the president's chief domestic policy advisor. I served as the president's political director. So we planned many events just like today together for the president 6 years ago. Now we're planning them for her as the secretary and me as the congressman. So very special full circle moment for me. But I'm very proud. She is the 9th member of the president's cabinet to visit our district. She is my favorite. She is my favorite. But it's special. I mean, honestly, it really helps our district and the wonderful people achieving the amazing things across our district have access to America's leaders. So to have all these folks, including our vice president, come to my district is very special. And it's special to be in studio again with you. She's sitting in the chair that Jim Jordan sat.
Yes.
So we both work very closely with them on a range of issues. So thank you, Steve, for having us.
Our pleasure. Understand today in Carroll County in West Georgia, you had a policy announcement regarding cattle, I believe it was.
Well, yes, but before we talk about that, can we just for a moment pause and say to have 9 cabinet members come through Georgia 3, that is unbelievable. And I don't think there's any other congressman in the country that could have pulled this off. I promise you there's no one else where there has been 9 cabinet members and a vice president. So anyway, Brian, it's so fun to be with you. I will go back and tell all of my friends in the cabinet that I was your favorite. But you're open for more to come and see if I can hold my title. But really, what a joy. Brian's been telling me about this district for a long time, and it's really cool to be here.
So I believe you had the president down at Zebulon.
Yes.
So we need to bring him up to either Tallapoosa or Carroll.
Yeah, there you go. If anyone can pull it off, it is Brian Jack who can pull it off. Yeah, listen, we were on a great sod farm earlier today. My first sod farm I have been on in 18 months. I've been on pretty much every other kind of farm, ranch, agriculture, production opportunity, and it's been wonderful. But today was really special. It's a first generation sod farm. Mr. McWhorter grew up in the dairy industry on the dairy farm, but he started this
NG Turf as a
NG Turf. That's exactly right. One of the great American sod farmers, one of the best. And so to be with him and his family, he's planning to pass this on down. He's already got all his kids working for him, was really cool. So we were there to talk sod, which we did, but we're also there to talk really agriculture in general. And one of the announcements we made is that for the first time, Georgia Leading the pack, as Georgia tends to do, the number one industry here is agriculture, is Georgia is now joining a very small group of states that will allow our smaller meat processors to move their product in Georgia out across the country with a USDA label, but that is supported and processed through a Georgia-based processing facility. And listen, for a lot of your listeners, they may be like, yeah, okay, what's next? That doesn't sound like that exciting to me. But what I'll tell you is why this is so exciting and why it's so important is that in the 2022 through 2024 timeframe, we literally lost the whole concept of America being a food exporter and feeding ourselves, which means freedom, and became a net food importer under the Biden administration. We have offshored, is the word I use, a lot of our food production capability and capacity. And so having the Georgia processors, the small guys, be able to do this for the whole country allows us to break up the concentration in what's happened in processing over the last 20 years.
Isn't that, and I don't mean to get in a long discussion, but as I recall, the Farm Bill or the Farm Act in the 30s, we were reducing surplus, and growing up we hear stories about the history of America. We were producing way too much. I mean, is this a result of long-standing policies over decades?
It is. I mean, it is. They're certainly between the years of 21 and 25, not one new trade deal. Inputs went up 40% on average, really shrunk the ability. There was a bit of a war, especially in our bluer states, not Georgia, but in our bluer states, against ranching and farming. Oregon just had an effort to outlaw hunting and ranching in the state of Oregon. New York is covering up their prime farmland with solar farms. I mean, it is a national security issue at this point, but there were short-term things that happened that have certainly exacerbated the whole problem in the last administration. But your point is correct. It is decades-long policy decisions allowing the consolidation, allowing foreign adversaries to come in and buy up some of our biggest ag producers. China now owns our largest pork company. Brazil, funded by China, now owns half of our processing capability.
Yeah, we want to talk
It's
about
shocking.
JBS.
Yeah.
We mentioned Ronald Reagan earlier, but when Ronald Reagan took over from Jimmy Carter, it takes time to undo.
It does.
It takes years.
Mm-hmm. It takes years. And, we're 18 months in, even with the Iranian conflict, which certainly has jumped some prices. But even with that, our fertilizer is down 50% what it was under Biden. Fuel, diesel even though it's too high, was way down before the Iranian conflict. It's still lower than during the Biden years. We now have 20 new trade deals. We're going to have record exports in corn and ethanol and dairy and others. So we are making progress, but it's just, it's going to, the Reagan changes that he made, year 3, year 4 is where we began to really feel the prosperity of that. And then, of course, bled into the Clinton years. The Clinton years of balanced budgets and prosperity was a direct result of the Reagan years of policy. So it's funny, I was with the president on Friday, Brian can appreciate this, in the Oval Office, and we were talking about other things, but he said, Brooke, do you think that I'm going to get credit for all of this hard work we're doing, because it's going to take a while for it to take effect? And I said, what's interesting? You will, but it took a while for Reagan to get the recognition that he deserved. It took a while for Abraham Lincoln back in the 1860s. When he was assassinated, he is the lowest popular, president on record. So it will happen, but I'm really proud of this work, and we're doing it for the right reasons.
You mentioned fertilizer. I understand there's also a $500 million fertilizer investment program.
Yes, there is. So fertilizer, another challenge of bad policy making in both Republican and Democrat executive branches and Congresses. For all these years, we've been offshoring. You hear the president talk a lot about offshoring manufacturing, offshoring pharmaceuticals, but in that same time period in America, we've been offshoring our inputs, fertilizer, seed, equipment, all been offshored to the tune of where we're getting almost all of that now from foreign countries, while at the same time the prices have skyrocketed. And then you've got a whole patent issue, which we don't have time to get into. China now owns the patent to most of our seeds, which is really shocking and scary. But it's time to start reshoring all of that. So we have a massive program We just announced $500 million to reshore fertilizer back to America. The very first big piece of news, I'll be in Louisiana in 2 weeks, breaking ground on what will be the largest ammonia plant in the world when it comes online in about a year. So we're making progress.
Let's stay on beef just for one other minute. We hear the stories about the four big meat packing companies that are monopolizing
Correct.
things. Understand the Department of Justice is investigating JBS from Brazil, one of the four. But I don't really understand, because now we've got a tariff on Brazil, but we're allowing the beef in. And then understand Mexico next month will be a port for beef. Kind of explain to us how that's okay, because I know when the Argentina question came up, everybody was up in arms about it.
Well, first of all, let's talk Argentina. The president made the decision to increase the TRQ or allow more beef from Argentina to come in. It went from 20,000 metric tons to 40,000 metric tons. In America, we consume 13 million metric tons every year. We always produce our own 10 million of that 13 million. We've always imported about 3 million metric tons of beef. That has always been part of the plan. So that Argentinian 20,000 to 40,000 of 3 million is literally a tiny drop in the bucket. So I think that's an important point. The port reopening in Douglas, Arizona that was announced. So we have a 100-year trade with Mexico with live cattle. It's not beef from JBS. It's nothing to do with the Packers. This is live cattle moving across the border, about 1 million head per year. That represents 5% of the total cattle that we slaughter in America. I closed those ports 14 months ago to get our arms around the New World screwworm issue. And in those 14 months, we did just that. So New World screwworm hit America 60 days ago. Everyone thought we'd have thousands of cases of full infestation. Today, we have 9 active cases. With that in mind, and the entire question isn't how much beef or beef affordability, the entire question for these ports is, can we safely reopen this 100-year-old trade?
And you're confident we can
yes.
with the screwworm.
Correct. And if it gets even close to Douglas, Arizona, we're not opening New Mexico, not opening Texas, only Douglas, Arizona. If it gets even close, we can shut it within an hour.
One final question on that before we go to break. My understanding, I'm not a farmer or a cattle person, but I understand we raise all the cattle here in Carroll County, then we ship them out to your neck of the woods, Texas and the Midwest, to feed on grain and really get big. Is that part of this whole scenario?
Well, there is no doubt. Part of that problem is that those four main companies, the Packers, most of their massive processing is in the Midwest. So a lot of the cattle that moves has to move out there for processing. And then, of course, because those processing plants are there, the feedlots build up around them. It's an interesting point that most people don't understand, that while we're at a 75-year low for our cattle herd, which is the reason that beef is so expensive, well, and also because Americans want more beef, we have more demand for it now than ever before, but the carcasses, the cattle themselves, have gotten larger. We have the best genetics, the best DNA of cattle in the world, and we're now producing larger and larger cattle. So we actually haven't had much of a decrease in the supply of beef. It's just our cattle herd's low, and we need more. We need a bigger herd.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more with United States Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, and we may let Congressman Brian
He's got big opinions over here.
say something, but we may not. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
He's sure smart.
Imagine a place where every heartbeat is monitored with the utmost care, where emergencies are met with swift attention, and where cutting-edge technology enables precise and timely treatments. At Tanner Health, every patient's journey is a testament to resilience, a story of strength, healing, and hope. We go beyond treatment to redefine what compassionate care truly means. That's Tanner Health. That's care redefined. Learn more at tanner.org.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Raddick, your host. We're delighted to have in studio, honored even, to have United States Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, in studio, along with Congressman Brian Jack from the 3rd District. All right, we've got a question here that was kind of originated from my very good friend, State Representative David Huddleston, who's been on this show a good number of times. So here we go. From the USDA website for Carroll County, there are 806 farms of an average size of 114 acres, making Carroll County a top county in the state for family farms. Family farms are disappearing. So what policies does the USDA support to help keep agricultural land in production and make it easier for the next generation to stay on the farm?
Well, a couple of things on that. First of all, love Rep. Huddleston. He was just at the round table and did a great job. For those 806 family farms, there's a macro picture and a micro picture. The macro is this: if we don't get these farms back to an era of prosperity and out of the current era of survival, we don't just lose those farms, we lose America and freedom as we know it. And so that's why this is so important. That is, again, from a macro perspective, that's opening up the markets for more exports, which we're going to reach records this year thanks to President Trump. That's supporting the domestic market for our row croppers through biofuels, but it's also bringing the cost of inputs down. So those are three really important long-term that we're making great progress on. Representative Jack and the great Republicans in Congress were such leaders on the Working Families Tax Cut Act. And what's interesting about that, and I think important, is the effort on that was to cut taxes, allow more Americans to keep more of their hard-earned money, and to shrink the footprint of government, which we did in that bill. But what's really important to note for rural America and for those 806 farms here in Carroll County is that while we were cutting other areas of government and shrinking the footprint, we had the largest investment in rural America in history in that bill. So I think it goes to show you our great Congressman, Brian leading the way, our White House solely focused on what's important for this country, and that is keeping these family farms in business, the death tax exemption for 2 million family farms to be able for them to pass on to the next generation. For the first time in 10 years, an increase in reference prices. Not all your listeners know what that is, but your farmers sure know what that is. We had 100% expensing in that bill. There was win after win after win in that bill that we're now executing at USDA to make sure that these farmers can stay in business. And again, not just survive, but to thrive.
Now, I'll leave this to Congressman Jack. Is this part of the Farm Bill, or this was prior to that?
So to what she's referring is mostly the Working Families Tax Cut. So H.R. 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was passed and enacted last July. And I do want to point out for anybody in the ag community listening, you got to look at the vote scoreboard, as I say. I love sports, as the two of you know. And you look back to last summer, every Democrat voted against exactly what she just mentioned. Looking ahead to this year, we passed the Farm Bill out of the House of Representatives. 209 Republicans, myself included, voted for the Farm Bill. 197 Democrats voted against it. And just last week, the House Republican majority passed a budget reconciliation framework that provides $12 billion in assistance to family farmers across the country. 216 Republicans voted yes, 211 Democrats voted no. So on the three biggest votes for the ag community this Congress, Republicans were in lockstep in support of our farmers. Democrats were in lockstep opposition to them.
So now it's before the Senate, right?
The Farm Bill and the budget reconciliation is before the Senate, yes.
Okay, let's take another break, and we'll be back with more after this.
Imagine a place where every heartbeat is monitored with the utmost care, where emergencies are met with swift attention, and where cutting-edge technology enables precise and timely treatments. At Tanner Health, every patient's journey is a testament to resilience, a story of strength, healing, and hope. We go beyond treatment to redefine what compassionate care truly means. That's Tanner Health. That's care redefined. Learn more at tanner.org.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. Good morning. I hope everyone's having a great day. We're very pleased, honored to have in studio United States Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, and Congressman Brian Jack of the 3rd Congressional District. This topic is kind of a broad topic, but I think it's worth addressing. And let me start out by saying I understand the USDA has discovered $3 billion in fraud with the SNAP EBT program. Allegedly 186,000 deceased individuals and 442,000 fraudulent Social Security numbers are in fact. I think everybody would agree that we want to eliminate fraud in the SNAP program and increase efficiencies so that those who are in need of this assistance will really benefit from that. But then again, on the big beautiful bill, we reduced the SNAP recipients from 42 down to 37 approximately. So what's your perspective on something, particularly in rural areas like Harrelson and Carroll counties, where the SNAP program, we're talking 10% of the American population. How do you view bringing this into line with Make America Great Again?
Well, first of all, we've lost our way when we judge the success of a program, a government program, based on how many people and more we can get in, which of course is the left. And I am shocked when I get into big debates and hearings with a lot of the Democrat leaders who frame it and they say, oh, you just kicked off 5 million people off of SNAP. And I said, there was no kicking anyone off of SNAP. What was passed in the bill was that if you're going to take this program, you have to at least look for work. You have to have 20 hours of work, or you have to volunteer 20 hours a week. This is per week. Look for a job, work a job, or volunteer 20 hours a week. That is not a huge ask if you're going to take a taxpayer dollar. And oh, by the way, that doesn't apply to you if you're elderly or if you have young children at home. So all of the kicking and screaming and belly aching, I just don't understand these Democrats who think it's okay to continue to bilk the American taxpayer to fund people in a program who clearly are not looking for supplemental assistance for a short term, but are really have grown up or perhaps are instead looking at this as a long-term welfare program. And we're just not here for it. The other thing I'll say is the 5 million people that have moved off of SNAP, a lot of that is because we have more people working today than ever before. They have moved off of a government program into the dignity and righteousness of work. And for that, we should be celebrating. And then the third piece of that is we made a very hard line. No illegal aliens can be on the SNAP program. So it's really those three things that have caused the 5 million people since we took office and I was sworn in to move off of the SNAP rolls. And again, I think that's worth celebrating. The fraud is real. Within the first hour of me being sworn in on February 13th, I sent a letter to every governor in America. SNAP is federally funded, but every state executes it differently. And I said, please partner with me. This is not partisan. Let's figure out, because there's no accountability. We send $100 billion a year into the states, and we have no idea whether it's being spent correctly. We'd heard all these stories like you see coming out of Minnesota, New York, and others. Help me help you figure out how to do this well. Only the red states participated, of course, and in that red state participation, we found 250,000 dead people. We found more than 500,000 people, and this is in the red states like Georgia, purplish, more red, but Governor Kemp was a great partner, where we were ensuring that the people who got it deserved, and they're the ones who should get it. Imagine, we're in litigation now with the blue states, imagine when we can finally get that data from the blue states, what we're going to find, because they have vastly more participation than the red states
I understand in Georgia, SNAP puts $3 billion a year into the economy, but now the state is more responsible now for the administration. I think it's from 50% down to 25% or something.
Well, what we are working to do is hold accountable. And that was part of the bill, but it's also part of executive branch authority under my decision making, that we have to have the states do better. It is not okay in red states, certainly the blue states, but again, we don't have the data for that yet. But even in the red states, for hundreds of thousands of dead people to get SNAP, USDA has arrested 1,000 people in just 18 months for SNAP fraud. 1,000 people. I mean, there was just zero accountability.
Are they going to go to jail or what?
Well, we have about 120 sitting in jail right now. The others are going through the process.
We're going to run out of time, and I want to certainly transition to my favorite topic, and we only have just a few minutes, maybe about 4 or 5. My favorite topic and everyone else's favorite topic, we'll let the Congressman probably dive in on this, data centers. Carroll, Harrelson, and Heard counties, at least for now, have come out temporarily opposed to data centers. The argument for keeping them or installing them is it's a national security issue, keeping up with communist China in the AI race. How should agricultural areas like ours handle the issue?
Well, first and foremost, as you enunciated, data centers are probably a hot topic in every state, but especially our district. And what you're seeing happen in Coweta, just over the border, just for reference for our great secretary, is actually, ironically, I've worked with your friend, our friend John Rich on this, but there was a data center that was approved in Coweta County, and the public reaction to that was so strong right now. They are gathering signatures. They are soon going to force a referendum on recalling that specific action. So first and foremost, I'm proud of my constituents across Coweta County who are gathering those signatures, participating in the legislative electoral process. This is codified in our state constitution, the ability to force that referendum. And I think it illustrates the broader point that if a data center wants to come in to a county, the best thing from my perspective is to have a countywide referendum or have some opportunity for every resident to voice their either concerns or support. And here in Carroll and Hurd and Harrelson, as you mentioned, you've got great leaders that want to make the best decisions for their county, but you've got to be responsive to your constituents. And in Coweta, I think we're going to see a referendum soon. And when we see that referendum, I think that it's going to be very decidedly in one way.
Comments?
So my amazing mom, she's 80.
Yay.
She decided to run for the Texas legislature at 78.
Lord.
Yes, she is the oldest freshman legislator in Texas history, and they call her Hurricane Helen because she is a hurricane.
Do you have a nickname, by the way?
I don't know that I do.
Okay.
Maybe Babbling Brook. I don't know.
There
But
you go. That's not bad.
my mom, and in my rural part of Texas, I grew up in a town of 1,000 on the plains of Texas, no big cities anywhere near us. They are absolutely panicked and terrified that these data centers are going to come in and completely destroy what has made rural Texas great. So I feel it because of where I grew up. I feel it as the Secretary of Agriculture with our farmers and ranchers and our farmland. Having said that, I don't believe the two goals are mutually exclusive. I do think we can protect rural America. We can save our farmland. We can work with our great elected officials like Brian Jack, who clearly has a great understanding, while ensuring we are able to beat China in the AI race. And these data centers are important for that. If we can't figure that out, then we will all likely be speaking Chinese within 50 years. That it is an existential issue. But America has a massive, massive land ownership and riches. There's a lot of desert land. There's a lot of brown fields that aren't being used anymore. I think the challenge was it went so fast and decisions were made so quickly and land was approved so, again, quickly that we didn't have that right balanced discussion that we're having now. And that's why this country is so special, because we are having the discussion, we are having the debate. The people will be able to speak either through their representative or their referendum opportunity, and we'll get to the right place. I believe that. But we do need a balance, absolutely.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to express our sincere gratitude to United States Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins.
Thank you.
Hope you will come back.
I would love to. I love it here.
And Brian Jack, you're welcome here anytime.
Very much. Thank you.
Sorry.
Brian's favorite cabinet secretary, for the record.
And we thank you for listening. We thank you, our sponsor. God bless our troops. Go out and make it a great day. You're in tune to WLBB Carrollton.